Land is more than soil. It is life. It is food. It is community. Yet, for too many Californians, access to land remains out of reach. High costs, complex systems, and limited resources keep small scale farmers, immigrants, women, native communities, and beginning farmers from growing their dreams. Through the Climate Action and Land Equity Project, or CALE, funded by the University of California, Agriculture and Natural Resources, the Shared Roots Initiative delivers educational videos, podcasts, and a guidebook paired with community workshops to expand farming access for underserved communities. Together, we are amplifying the voices of land stewards, sharing knowledge on climate-smart practices, and building pathways toward equity and resilience. Because when communities have access to land, they cultivate more than crops. They grow opportunity. They grow justice. They grow hope.
Welcome to the Share Roots podcast, where culture, community, and stories of resilience come alive. In each episode, we hear directly from voices across our communities as they share how our roots in the land, in our traditions, and in each other have shaped and continue to shape the agricultural landscape in our Southern California region. I'm your host, Areli Perez.
I'm your host, Paul Moshka. We're excited to share these journeys with you. Today, we're joined by Sierra Reese, Land Equity Project Manager with the UC Agricultural Natural Resources. She's passionate about resilient land justice, empowering communities. Her focus is on food access, environmental learning, equitable land use here in San Diego. And she's here with us today to talk about the CALE project and her role in advancing this important work. Welcome, Sierra.
Thank you, Paul and Areli.
We're so happy you're here. We've been looking forward to this conversation. Before we dive into the details of your work, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you. Is there a personal story that sparked your interest or passion for land justice and community empowerment?
Yeah, well, thank you both so much for having me here today, and thank you to ACMA for creating and guiding this podcast. It truly is an honor to speak about these issues, and I actually have worked with both Paul and Areli in the past, and I look up to both of you a lot, so it's really wonderful to be here. A little bit of history on myself. I grew up in the Bay Area, specifically in Muir Woods area. And so from a very young age, I grew up with a sense of love and wonder for nature. And I very quickly realized that I wanted to work in some kind of field that allowed me to put my time and energy into protecting our planet. So when I went into school, I studied sustainability and environmental geography. And environmental geography was really my dive way into land access because geography is about the study of spatial relationships. And so we learned a lot about how humans impact land and vice versa. We also learned a lot about like historical and systemic injustices that have led to unequal land access and an unfair distribution of environmental benefits and burdens. So that was really my first segue into the world of land access and learning about that. And after college, I started working for the Resource Conservation District, where I managed their environmental education programs. And eventually, I had the pleasure of working at Wild Willow Farm, which is where I met Paul and Areli, and really watched land access issues firsthand there. That's kind of like what my personal experience with land access is. That was my first time seeing it in real time. Working at the farm at Wild Willow. It's a farm located in, or was located in the South Bay of San Diego. And because it was located within a county park, it meant that we were on a lease, which really made it difficult to invest in infrastructure. It made it really challenging for us to actually put programs into impact because we weren't really allowed to spend money towards something if we didn't own it. And it really impacted the way that we were able to work. The Wild Willow Farm was such a great community hub and a resource of fresh food. And because of both the lease issues and then mismanagement from that parent organization, it is no longer in that area anymore. And it was really heartbreaking to watch those like land access issues affect a community in real time. So that's kind of just like a little history and my segue into land access. And now working for UCANR, I only started here in February, but have been working on this climate action and land equity project, which I'll get into a bit more.
And what inspires you most about your work around climate resilience and land equity?
Mm, I think what's really wonderful about this job is I get to go into the community and talk to farmers and growers and really hear their like real life stories and their history with land, and just watching the disconnection between our food and agriculture here is both heartbreaking and inspiring. I just talking firsthand with people who have had issues accessing land, or they, have been growing food in a space for years and years, and then they're kicked off of their lease, or they're no longer able to provide for the community. It's inspiring to watch these things because it's the farmers and growers have so much tenacity and they keep trying over and over. And so I really want to help bridge this gap and offer technical assistance programs and help them just find areas where they can grow food, because it's such an important way to get back to our roots, growing our food and offering food to the community. And so just watching over and over what land access does to an area, it inspires me to help people gain access to land easier, and just continue work that's really important.
Yeah, thanks, Sierra. These personal stories are really important. I feel like they bring warmth to the subject matter and also they help set the stage for the bigger picture. So
Mhm.
why don't we dive into the more nitty-gritty aspects of what we're going to talk about today?
Thanks, Sierra. I really appreciate your sharing your background and also the kind of the challenges that are out there. I guess could you please start by giving us a an overview of the goals of the Kale project and kind of actually how the UC agriculture, natural resources are playing the leading role in this project?
Yeah, of course. So CALE, which is our project, it actually stands for Climate Action and Land Equity. So it's a C, not a K, but we did make it CALE because we're in agriculture. But UCANR back in 2023 was awarded a $1.7 million grant through the Department of Conservation, and specifically through their Climate Smart Land Management Program. And my wonderful colleague, Dr. Chanda Richards, is the one who developed this grant. And with the funding, she was able to start this Climate Action and Land Equity Project, CALE, within UCANR. And we were actually awarded this amount in partnership with three other organizations, which are Community Alliance with Family Farmers, which is CAF, California Association of Resource Conservation Districts, which is CARCD, and then the California Farm Bureau Federation, which is CFBF. So if you hear me refer to those later, those are what those refer to. But this funding, the main goal is to really support efforts in two of California's most pressing land management challenges, which is equitable land access and then land management diversification. And the goal is to really build regional and state capacity and also help with technical assistance programs to increase climate resilience on California's working lands. And because that's kind of like a very broad goal, we split this into four main sections to really like help guide us on our path forward, and then also make it a little bit more digestible. Just as we're going through, we're like, where does this fit into our four goals? So the four that we have that we've been working with the past few years since 2023. The first one is to provide funding opportunities to partner on organizations to conduct research, provide outreach services, and engage with different groups. This one is specifically connected to our partnership with ACMA and this podcast that we're doing right now. So I think I'll dive into that a little bit later on, but we have been able to provide funding to four community-based organizations throughout Southern California, which has been really exciting. So that's one of our main goals. The second one is to develop practical climate action solutions to land access, tenure, and management for growers and stewards that will help to support the preservation of food systems. And so this one is a bit more research based, and we've been working with the three organizations that I mentioned earlier, CRCD, CAF, and CFBF, to kind of work on more like on the ground action solutions and do some studies. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that's one of our goals, our second one. So, the third goal that we have for our program is to ensure consistent and accessible multilingual outreach and engagement materials. And this is something that I've been focusing on a lot. I recently created a website for us, which is on the San Diego UC Cooperative Extension website underneath CALE. And this has all of our resources, all of the outreach materials that have been created. We've also had the whole website translated to Spanish and a lot of our outreach materials translated as well. On there, we have also a statewide growers map that I'll get into a little bit later to talk about that. But this has been a really big, consistent one that is important to us because we want to share the different technical assistance programs that are within the area. We want to share different organizations that can help farmers and growers access land and also implement different practices. And so then the fourth one is to research and engage in conversations with growers, stakeholders, and experts in land access and tenure issues. So part of this is we have vowed to do 8 events throughout our grant period. And there are technically 8 counties within Southern California that we are serving. So our goal is to do one in each of the different counties. Within the last 3 quarters that I've been a part of, we did one in Orange County, one in San Bernardino, and then a virtual event that we did in partnership with American Farmland Trust. And the goal of these is just to bring people together so that we can build connections and grow these conversations and talk about land access because it's not often talked about. So yeah, those are our 4 main goals. And then UCANR kind of plays this like convening role by bringing together both the research side and then working with these different organizations that have expertise in these different areas to help co-create solutions and also fund partners and help to serve farmers and land stewards. So that's kind of the synopsis of our grant and what we're working on right now.
In the conversations that you've been having with farmers and with other partners in our region, what would you say are some of the current challenges that are and barriers that continue to be faced by local farmers, particularly around land access within the historically underrepresented and marginalized communities?
Mhm. Yeah, so farmers across all of California, but we're talking to ones in Southern California, and especially like small scale beginning farmers and BIPOC farmers are facing a combination of structural and environmental barriers. Specifically with land access, we have land costs, which have skyrocketed. Water is very, very expensive. A lot of leases are short term, which is kind of as I was talking about earlier, which makes it hard to invest in infrastructure, especially if you don't own the land, you're just leasing it. And then land ownership does remain highly concentrated. And because a lot of farmers rent year to year, it makes it impossible to also invest in like climate practices and soil health practices because those require more long-term stability. So a lot of farmers aren't able to put effort into climate smart practices if they're not owning the land. And then for historically underrepresented communities, the barriers go even deeper and farther back. There are barriers with land access and language access, and then there's also limited financial resources, as well as discrimination in places like lending and zoning. So these are things that we're trying to talk to farmers about and really understand like what's going on deeper beneath the surface so that we can kind of help and give support in these areas. And then we're also seeing a lot of climate pressures. There's things like drought and wildfire and pollution and land conversion. And so all of these things really intensify these kind of challenges. And that's really why CALE is focused on equitable land access, especially in relation to climate resilience, because you can't really talk about climate resilience without actually talking about who owns the land and who has secure access to land. So that's why I feel like these two are really linked. And yeah, the barriers, like I talked about, land costs and short leases and climate issues, they all kind of come together and culminate in this perfect storm. So that's kind of what we're working to help alleviate.
Something you said, and I really want us to be able to reach the broader community, which is what it sounds like you're trying to do through this CALE project. For those that aren't familiar, what does climate smart practices mean? What does it mean to be climate resilience?
Yeah. So we want to implement like assistance programs that are helping with our soil health, for instance. Like soil is the root of farming, and soil should be alive. Actually, something that Paul used to teach at Wild Willow that he would say is dirt is dead and soil is alive, like soil is living. And that's a really important part. Actually, our UC system here at our cooperative extension office, we have some like soil health programs that can help farmers like really work at the root of issues there. It's also helping to implement like things that will help prevent more climate practices, like putting up like barriers against erosion, and like creating hedgerows, like planting native plants that are good for the soil there, plants that are supposed to be in that area, and not overcropping with like, let's say you're planting tomatoes over and over and over again. Like, you want to give room and growth to the soil to breathe and to have different key nutrients in it. And so it's kind of a whole bunch of different ways that you can work on the land. And it's also just going back to like respecting the land. And a lot of times, if you aren't the owner of the land, you kind of don't feel as connected to it. So it's like creating this connection to our land, creating connection to soil, helping farmers to realize that there are these like climate smart practices that you can implement that are better for you and better for the soil. Like monocropping, you might think that, oh, I want to grow all of these same things. I want to produce over and over and over, but it's not actually going to be like long-term sustainable. So just more education around these different things and helping to create like a bridge to these technical assistance programs, because a lot of people don't even know that they're accessible. And a lot of these programs you can get funding for to like implement some of these technical assistance things. So we really want to bridge that gap and educate people that there are different resources out here and there are different ways of like sustainably tending to the land.
Great, Sierra. Appreciate that. I'm just curious. I noticed there's some collaborations that your organizations are working with. I wanted to look at kind of across the board what other organizations are contributing to this, and maybe some of their examples, and to complement and strengthen this program.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm here right now because of one of our partnerships, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And I'll talk a little bit about our subawardees, which ACMA is one of them. So yeah, in the beginning of this year, February of 2025, we put out a request for proposal with to help support the goal of CALE to fund community-based organizations to help develop this multi-language outreach materials and engaging video content that we had, that we've talked about previously. And so we were able to fund 4 different organizations with $90,000 each. And we had 9 applicants in all. And this was a really hard process to figure out who we wanted to fund. But we wanted to try to, first off, get organizations that are really ingrained in the community already and kind of are within these different communities that we want to help serve. And then also kind of all throughout Southern California. So the 4 that we ended up awarding, the first is Asian Culture and Media Alliance, that's hosting us here today. And they're a nonprofit media and advocacy group dedicated to empowering Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. And they are based in San Diego, Orange County, and LA. So we've been working with them to create this podcast to, empower communities within these specific places. Our second one that we're working with is called Entravision, and they are a bilingual media company with a strong footprint specifically in Spanish language television and radio. And they are based in Riverside. And then we have FarmLink and San Diego Food Systems Alliance. They were awarded as a joint community effort, and they're combining land access advocacy with like deep regional food systems knowledge to help reach diverse growers and land seekers in the San Diego area, and then also in Imperial County. And then our fourth awardee is Condor Visual Media, which is an Indigenous-led media group which focuses on amplifying Native voices through culturally grounded storytelling and video production. And they are focused in San Diego County as well as on tribal lands. So along with this video and outreach content that we're working on all of these organizations with, some of them are also going to be hosting technical assistance workshops, creating events and podcasts like this to share our work and really amplify these underrepresented voices. And this is a new partnership, and this is something that we're doing for the first time within CALE. So it's been really exciting to work with these new organizations and just like hear their own experiences. They all have deep ties to the communities that they've been working in for years, which is really wonderful because CALE is a new program in itself. So it's been really helpful to hear from these community-based organizations that have this expertise and this knowledge. So we've been working with all of them. And then, like I mentioned, when we were first awarded the grant as well, it was in partnership with 3 other organizations, CAF, CARCD, and CFBF. And they're all doing kind of different things within our community as well. And they have deep expertise in different parts of the land equity puzzle. So we wanted to incorporate them in this conversation. But for example, CAF, which is Community Alliance of Family Farmers, they're specifically conducting a mapping survey on agricultural land ownership and helping to estimate climate impacts on communities. They're also helping to facilitate small and vulnerable farming communities, like facilitate engagement with them to help ensure like statewide data and outreach can actually reflect like on the ground realities. We're not just coming up with these ideas. We're like facilitating engagement and asking questions. So they're kind of creating this mapping study and helping us collect data. And then with CARCD, with this, which is the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts, they're working to help identify key opportunities and barriers in land access, and also help to improve our collaboration and communication between agencies and governments, and help us to make like policy recommendations for them. So kind of bridging the gap between like local needs and the statewide system changes that are needed. And then we have California Farm Bureau Federation, which they are soliciting input and providing technical assistance to land managers and priority groups. They're helping us with outreach for our events. So yeah, they have been instrumental in this whole process, and none of this would be possible without the expertise and the information from these different organizations. And it's been a really wonderful journey to add on these 4 new community-based organizations as well, and excited to see everything that all of you do. This podcast is a really great example, and I'm really excited to hear both this episode and then who's brought on in the future, so that it's not just my voice. I want all farmers and different people with expertise to be a part of this, and it's great to have Paul and Areli really spearhead this effort, because they have a lot of expertise and knowledge in land access and climate resilience and all of these issues. So it's great to have a lot of collaboration for this grant.
Wow, thanks, Sierra. Really looks like it's like a broad spectrum of experience, people that, have answers to kind of the true access to land, and then all the other organizations that are the people that really need the land. And it sounds like you've really tied into all the whole spectrum of people that are the movers and shakers, and the people that really are in need of this type of work. So really appreciate all this effort.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah, I appreciate the thoughtfulness and including everybody and bringing everybody to the table, especially in these times when there is so much division and we all have something to contribute. And so that is a question I have. How has the current political climate of our region, of our country, of the world impacted agriculture and farming communities working towards land justice? And have you noticed any specific impacts in the work you do, specifically UCANR and other partner organizations?
Yeah, this is a really important question and also kind of a hard question. I feel like the political climate has made the conversation about land equity and just land in general both more urgent and also definitely more complex. On one hand, I feel like there is a lot more of a growing recognition that equitable land access is essential for climate resilience and food security. Although it is more of a conversation and like a growing recognition in these communities that I'm already a part of, and I know it's not as talked about in other communities. So there's that on one hand. I feel like it's kind of at the forefront of our mind because I'm seeing it more. I'm like realizing it's more of an issue. But then on the other hand, we're still navigating tensions around like land use and water, and everything is costing a lot more. The cost of land in San Diego is really, really high. Cost of water is ridiculous, and it makes it hard for farmers to actually stay farming. It doesn't make it financially profitable. It doesn't make it so that it can sustain them, which is really important. Um, yeah, so it's kind of this like hard in between. Specifically with Kale, the funding that we have is through the Department of Conservation, which is like a state grant. And so we're able to really continue this work in Southern California, and it hasn't impacted our work in a negative way. But we've been having a lot of broader conversations, and there are a lot of really, really important like community programs that have been cut that affect everything. It's kind of like this chain reaction, like you cut CalFresh, and it makes it harder for people to access food, and then they cannot, that CalFresh is allowed at a lot of farmers markets, and so then they can't support farmers, and farmers are not getting this income from these certain areas. So the cutting of programs is kind of like it's cutting off a lot of different things, and specifically our program is funded for right now, but we're also in this place where we're thinking about the next steps and wondering how we can continue this conversation. And we have funding to work with these community-based organizations and these different broader statewide organizations right now, but we won't always. And so kind of trying to figure out like how we continue this program and like make this such a big conversation that it needs to be like brought on after this. Yeah, and our role at Kale is not to take a political stance, but to really create informed, collaborative spaces where farmers and landowners and community groups can learn from each other. They can work together. They're able to, bridge this gap and figure out how they can both support each other in a way that works in this current climate.
Well, yeah, thanks, Sarah. I guess that really bridges the gap. Brings on this next question of looking ahead, and how do you see the organizations continuing to work together beyond this grant period to sustain the momentum and build stronger community impact with this challenge?
Yeah. So, like I said, our like vision and our goal is so that Kale is not just a single program. We would like to continue to find funding to really continue this land access conversation within UCANR and maybe within other organizations as well. The partnerships that we're building right now are really laying the groundwork for this long-term collaboration, and that's why we're working really hard to create these events and bring people together and start this conversation, but also like create this foundation so that we can continue to build off of this. We're also working on developing shared tools. Like, for example, our website, like I mentioned, has a lot of resources that even if we get to a point where Kale is not a working program, we'll have all of these resources that can be shared. I've also been working with our GIS team here at UCANR, and we're working on a statewide partners map where it will have all of the counties within California that you can click on and you can zoom into, and then it'll have information about different organizations that could help you. And so this is specifically for like farmers and growers, but we have like CAF on there, we have RCDs on there, we have CAL FIRE contacts, we have appraisers, we have people that can help you access land, people who can help you implement climate smart practices on there. So yeah, really trying to develop tools like this that will live on way past our grant period and help to keep us connected. We also, that's part of like investing in these community-based organizations. We want to create these different communication channels like newsletters. We want to have workshops. We want to have podcasts like this, compile data so that we can keep sharing this information even once this grant period is over. So yeah, we want to try to continue to support organizations and expand farmer learning opportunities. So we're not just building a program here, we're trying to build relationships that do actually make long-lasting systemic change possible.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. It sounds like there's going to be a real like solid network and a framework where people can use as a resource in the future. So that seems really promising.
I hope so, yeah.
As you spoke, I had the image of soil, right? And we're all doing the work underground and we're building the soil and we're nurturing the roots.
Mhm.
So it's really beautiful and it's inspiring. It gives me some hope in these times, and I really think we need that. We need to see collaboration happening, and we need to know that there's good work that's happening all around us.
At all the different levels. Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. Mhm.
You've really helped us really lay the foundation for this podcast and what's coming. And we hope to bring in more guests that are going to expand on what you've touched on today and the ways that they're working to advance land equity and climate resilience. So we're really grateful for everything you've shared today.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
And we
you.
like to end on a light, fun round of a lightning round.
Mhm.
So it's a one word answer. We're going to ask you some questions, and you have, one word only.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay, first one is what's the thing you've grown just recently that you're most excited about?
Mm, Eggplant in one word. That was my first time growing that. It didn't turn out super great, but I'm a novice backyard gardener, so eggplant I grew recently and it was okay.
Yay. Coffee or tea?
Tea. I'm not a coffee drinker.
What is a traditional dish that either you have cooked and you're real excited about, or it's something you want to cook?
Um, a dish that was really important to me growing up. My family is Swiss, and my grandma used to make this wooden plate cake, is what she called it. And it's basically a bunch of ground up almonds and lemon, and it literally looks like a wooden plate. And I have tried to cook it a few times. It doesn't turn out as good, but my mom makes it for me every one of my birthdays, and it's really special to me and important. So I would like to learn how to make it properly for when I have kids.
You said it's wooden cake?
It's called wooden plate cake, which there is a Swiss word for it, and I don't know it. But I always thought it was like a recipe that was known in like Swiss communities. And when I went back to Switzerland to visit my family, they told me it was just a family recipe, and I always thought it was something that was known, but it is not. So
Sounds yummy.
it's yummy.
If you were a tree, what kind would you be?
Definitely a redwood. I'm very tall, and I grew up among the redwoods. So
Or do you like summer or fall?
summer. I love the sunshine.
All right. And the last one, what's your go-to farmer's market in San Diego or Southern California for that case?
I because I live near Ocean Beach area, it's definitely the OB farmers market, which can be quite chaotic. But it's definitely a community hub as well. I always run into a million people when I'm there.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Sierra. It was fun to have you here today with us.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Shared Roots podcast. We hope today's conversation offered insight, inspiration, and a deeper connection to our community. Be sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, and share this episode with someone who might be inspired by today's conversation. Until next time, keep nurturing your roots because our stories grow stronger when we share them together. I'm Arely Perez.
I'm Paul Moshka.
Thanks
Thanks for
for listening.